Fighting for the French, Olivier and his army recapture the lost city of Vannes, but the victory is short-lived and the English quickly take it back. Olivier and other commanders there are captured, and for some reason he's traded back to the French for a suspiciously small amount of money, and this makes the French start to believe he's a traitor. The Pope comes in and calls a timeout on the war in 1343, and in this brief truce, the king invites Olivier and other nobles from Breton to Paris to participate in a tournament to celebrate the newfound peace. Olivier thinks this is awesome and travels to France, but the second he steps onto French soil, he's arrested and taken prisoner. He's tried for treason and thrown into a dungeon to await his trial. Back in Breton, Jean finds out about this, rushes to Paris, and desperately tries to get her husband released, even going so far as to bribe the king's sergeant, but ultimately fails. Olivier is given a sham trial, and in August, he's marched out to the town square and publicly beheaded. His body's then hung up in Paris, and his head was shipped off to Brittany to be displayed on a spike. Horrific for anyone, but for a noble to be treated like this was the ultimate disrespect. In Brittany, Jean brings her two youngest sons to look at their father's severed head. She forces them to stare at their father's pale, lifeless face that is now weeks old and is rotting and covered in a swarm of flies. Inside, she boils with rage and refuses to let her children look away. They must understand that the king must pay. And so, at the age of 43, Jean decides to dedicate the rest of her life to making the rest of King Philip's life a living hell. She breaks all ties to France and sells off her entire estate, land, jewelry, anything and everything she owned of value, and uses the cash to raise a small personal army. She arrives at Château de Tuffeau, a castle controlled by the French loyalists. She weeps loudly at the castle gates, asking for the men to allow a heartbroken widow entry. The commander of the castle looks down and recognizes her as a noble who supports Charles de Blois and opens the gates. Once the gates are open, Jean's army reveal themselves and